Well, that's how it is. So I'll take that luxury foreign car off your hands. It's wasted on a plain woman like Margareta. Just the other day, my folks were saying they wanted to buy a new car.
Ever since we got married, my husband, Brandon, has become increasingly selfish. He even started coveting the precious car I got from my parents. I had been enduring it for a long time, but even I had reached my limit. My name is Margareta. I'm 25 years old. I met my husband Brandon at college, and we have been married for 2 years. Compared to me, who's introverted and not great at socializing, Brandon is outgoing and has many friends. We got to know each other in our college seminars, and gradually we began to talk more, eventually studying together in libraries and cafes. Even though we were in the same seminar, I never imagined someone as plain and unnoticeable as me would end up dating someone popular like Brandon. And to my surprise, it was Brandon who asked me out. I was ecstatic, experiencing mutual love for the first time. Of course, I immediately said yes to his proposal and our relationship started. It made sense that I was drawn to Brandon. He was good-looking, had a friendly demeanor, was serious about his studies, but it should have been different for Brandon. He had plenty of cute, fashionable female friends around him. He could have easily found someone else to be his girlfriend. I once boldly asked Brandon, "Do you really think I'm the right one for you?" He looked surprised and responded,
Huh? What brought this on?
"I'm like this and don't have much confidence. Just wondering why you chose me as your girlfriend." After pondering a bit, Brandon muttered a typical response.
Well, I guess it's comfortable being with you.
I must have looked unsatisfied because he then said,
What's with the silence? Do I really need to spell out everything I like about you?
Brandon replied with a hint of annoyance, fiddling with his mobile phone. Not wanting to push him away, I quickly wrapped up the conversation. "Yeah, you're right. Sorry for bringing it up out of the blue." Though I had lingering doubts, our relationship continued smoothly. Time flew by. We graduated from college, got married, and moved into a condominium. I found a job at a general company, while Brandon pursued graduate studies and academic research. When I mentioned getting married, Mom seemed very happy. "That's a great deal. Dad and I were a bit worried. We thought Margarita would at least introduce a boyfriend to us." Sorry, I should have told you about Brandon sooner." "That's all right. You've always been one to keep things to yourself, Margarita. Always trying not to trouble us, handling everything on your own. But knowing you have someone to support you makes me relieved. Brandon will be there to protect you." My parents also met in college and still have a loving relationship, which I admire. Dad was a hard worker. After graduating, he joined a renowned company, steadily climbing up the ranks to an executive position. There is Mom, who respects Dad and supports him by his side. She used to work at a publishing company, and after getting married, she perfected her hobby of cooking while raising her children. Now, she's a popular cooking expert, having published several recipe books and teaching cooking classes. They respected each other's lives and never restricted one another. Growing up under their roof, I too developed a spirit of independence. Though my only forte was studying, I didn't pursue graduate school. I wanted to be self-sufficient as soon as possible and establish my own life. I was raised comfortably in a well-off family, but I couldn't remain the pampered daughter forever. I wanted to build my own family, just like Dad and Mom. I hope to have children one day and make my parents happy. It was more a goal than a dream. It might seem ordinary, but it's not that simple, especially for someone as awkward as me. After we started living together, Brandon gradually became more selfish. He was a graduate student and worked part-time, but he hardly contributed to our living expenses. "Hey, Brandon, It would really help if you could put a little more of your part-time earnings towards our expenses. I said this casually, not wanting to upset him, but he coldly replied,
What? I do contribute some, besides. Didn't you say when we decided to move in together that you would handle the living expenses, Margareta?
Brandon had always said he wanted to be a professor, which is why he went to grad school. Brandon has been saying that for a while, wanting to support his dream. When we decided to get married, I said, I got a decent salary from the job I landed after graduation. Don't worry about it, just focus on your research, Brandon. I mumbled hesitantly, yeah, I did say that, but couldn't say anything more definite, and Brandon let out a big sigh.
Oh, I guess you wouldn't understand, Margareta. Being a grad student involves a lot of expenses for socializing and stuff. Oh, I forgot to mention, I need to go on a research trip soon. And, I'm a bit short on the travel funds. Could you lend me like $500? I'll pay you back later.
This kind of financial pressure from Brandon became more frequent after that, and the problems deepened. The number of nights Brandon spent out increased noticeably. I sat in front of cold meals, waiting for a call on my mobile phone. On the rare occasion he came home in a good mood, I remained too lenient. Sometimes he would say,
Hey, Margareta, remember you wanted to visit that place? I have tomorrow off. Let's go together.
Bringing up trips out of the blue,
or wow, today's dinner is my favorite. That's so like you, Margareta. Always knowing what I like.
I was constantly swayed by his words and actions. Every time Brandon was kind to me, I caught a glimpse of the ideal married life, and my heart wavered. I knew this unnatural way of living couldn't last. Tormented by loneliness and anxiety, and unable to confide in anyone, I kept everything to myself. I didn't want to sadden my parents, who had been so happy when we decided to get married. But they must have started to realize something was wrong. When I visited my parents' house after a long time, Dad casually said,
Why didn't you stay tonight? You must be tired from the unfamiliar life. How about dinner with the family for a change?
That night, Mom prepared an array of lavish dishes showcasing her culinary skills. During dinner, Dad mentioned,
By the way, your sister visited the other day. She wanted to see you, Margareta. She said you should get together for tea sometime.
It's always sudden with her.
That's just how she is. I keep telling her to let us know in advance.
Dad shrugged as if it couldn't be helped. The sister he referred to was my aunt, Eileen, a lively, ambitious, and independent woman. I'll get in touch with her soon. Yes, do that. Eileen loves you a lot, Margareta.
She's always complaining about how Brandon stole you from her, and yet she's adamant about not getting married herself. Well, that's just Eileen for you.
Before I met Brandon, Eileen was more like an older friend than an aunt. I could talk to her about things I couldn't tell my parents. She understood me better than anyone and always supported me. I was too shy to tell her about Brandon at first. I wanted to see Eileen again and show her I was doing well. A few days after staying at my parents', I met Eileen at a cafe we had arranged to meet at. Eileen, a fashion designer, was dressed exceptionally stylishly as usual. Eileen scrutinized my outfit from head to toe and said gently, You know, Margareta, for a woman, marriage is just the beginning of a lifelong challenge. You'd always feel attractive. No matter how little confidence you have, clothes can transform you, so never neglect yourself. And she elegantly sipped her tea. Indeed, I had completely forgotten about fashion lately. I'm so sorry for not getting in touch for so long. I apologized in a low voice. And Eileen said, That's just like you, Margareta. Being honest and serious is great. But being too timid comes from a lack of experience. But I was so happy when I heard you had found someone special. I thought finally Margareta has taken her first step. It had been a long time since I had met someone outside on a day off. Luckily, the weather was perfect. Sitting at the terrace, the warm sunlight poured down on us. In this peaceful atmosphere, I felt I could open up about my worries to Eileen without feeling too down. Yeah, at first, I thought even someone as timid as me could make it work with Brandon, that I could really do it, but Eileen listened to my whole story without interrupting, just nodding kindly. When I finished, she asked, "I guess you haven't told your parents about this, have you, Margareta?" "Yes. I even hesitated about telling you today. I didn't want to admit my weaknesses to anyone. I thought I should be able to overcome this on my own, to be truly independent. I know if Dad and Mom heard about this, they would want to take me back home right away. So I want to try to handle this by myself as much as I can." Eileen respected my decision and didn't press any further. But she said at the end, "If you ever really need help, let me know first. If my dear Margaret asks for help, I'll come to you no matter where I am." A month later, Mom called and said, "When you have time, could you come over? It's not urgent." I had the next day off, so I visited my parents. Seeing a car parked in the driveway, I exclaimed, unable to hide my excitement. "What? Dad, this car? Did you get it recently?" Dad, with a satisfied look, teasingly said,
Want to take it for a spin?
"Really? Can I? It's such a fancy car. What if I crash it?"
Don't worry about that. This car is for you, Margareta. Use it as you like. It'll be handy to have.
Mom whispered to me, "We saw this car in a TV commercial and you said it was cool." Dad remembered that, so this is our gift to you. You have been having a tough time lately, so we wanted to cheer you up. If things get hot, just drive this and come home anytime. She smiled kindly. The car Dad chose for me was an SUV from a world-famous foreign brand, and he had even secured a parking spot near my condominium. I couldn't help but laugh in disbelief. Later, when I was driving the car downtown, I fumbled in my pocket, found the car key and pressed the button. The lights flashed in all directions. Just then, a familiar voice called out from behind,
What's up with that car?
I turned around to see my husband Brandon. He hadn't been home for quite a while. It was almost like we were separated. I was speechless, and he said with a know-it-all look,
Oh, I see. Got it from your parents, huh?
Whenever I faced Brandon, I found myself unable to say anything. But I was tired of feeling that way. "Brandon, it doesn't matter to you anymore. You probably don't care about me anymore," I said, mastering my voice and piecing my words together. Then, Brandon uttered something unbelievable.
What? You're just realizing now? Did you seriously believe all this time that I loved you? It's laughable how optimistic you are.
His dry laugh echoed in my ears. Something inside me finally snapped and I blurted out unusually loudly. "Then why did you marry me?"
Wow, hysterical much? Fine, I'll tell you. Your family is rich, right? I figured marrying Margarita would mean I wouldn't have to worry about food for a while, considering what I make from part-time work and studies. So I'll take that car too. It's wasted on a plain woman like you. My parents were just saying they wanted to change their car. It's like killing two birds with one stone. Doing a favor for my parents.
Brandon was completely unabashed, spouting his justification.
Oh, and if you refuse, we're getting a divorce. You know, without me, you might never find another man. So think hard at home and what's the right decision.
Brandon threw these words and left abruptly. I was left in a state of anger and sorrow. Overwhelmed by a terrible headache, breathing ragged, I sat in the driver's seat for a while, waiting for my emotions to settle. Then I took out my phone and called my Aunt Eileen. A few days later, things took a rapid turn. I readily agreed to the divorce and left the condominium to return to my parents' home. My parents welcomed me with open arms and life finally seemed to regain some tranquility. But a week later, during a peaceful afternoon, an unwelcome visitor arrived. My ex-husband Brendan stood at the front door accompanied by his parents. After they were ushered into the living room, Brandon's father started.
We're here to discuss our son's divorce. It's quite urgent.
His tone was intimidating.
When writing the divorce papers, Brandon was told by Margareta, if you don't agree to the divorce, I'll ruin your future. With my parents' connections in the university, it would be easy to crush a junior grad student's career if their only daughter cries to them.
He truly loved Margareta. Such treatment is too much.
This is clear intimidation. We could easily contest the divorce. He was deceived by a terrible woman. Behind her plain appearance, she's a mean-spirited, greedy woman.
Poor Brandon. I heard she paid him to stay away. She must have had men over.
We need to go to family court and claim Brandon was threatened by his wife. But if there is an appropriate apology, things might change. For instance, if Margareta gives up that car she's driving, that might smooth things over.
Brandon remained silent beside his protesting parents. Suddenly, the doorbell rang, and after a brief pause, Mom sighed and went to the door. Elaine appeared behind Mom as she returned to the living room. Sorry, I'm late. How far have you gotten in the discussion? Brandon's family had met Elaine once at my wedding.
What are you doing here? It's rude to barge in like that. We're busy now. Outsiders should leave.
Now, don't be like that. You'll hear about Brandon's divorce, right?
How does an outsider like you know about that?
I was informed by my brother earlier. I couldn't stay away from such a crucial moment for my dear niece. Elaine gave a small reassuring glance. You're probably here to cancel the divorce or beg for money. Can you still say that after seeing this? Elaine pulled out a stack of documents from her bag, spread them out on the table, and showed them. I hired a detective to investigate. It seems Brandon, despite being married, has been cheating with several women. He rarely came home because of that. He took advantage of Margareta's kindness to live as he pleased, even begging for money.
That's nonsense. I was just busy with my research at the university. When I did come home, we ate together and went on trips, right? We were like any other married couple, right, Margareta? Say something. Brandon, you don't need to say anything. We'll handle this. It's not your fault. We understand,
said his father. That's right. These documents from who knows where are surely lies. Our Brandon would never cheat. He's such a kind and excellent son. His mother protested. You may be kind to your parents, but that's only within your family. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Now, Brandon's mother, please look at these photos, Elaine said, pulling out a picture from the documents. Recently, I stayed at a hotel for a business meeting and saw Nicholas there. He was with a beautiful woman looking quite intimate, so I asked the detective to investigate Nicholas too. The results were as I expected. You understand, don't you? Brandon's mother's face turned pale. She grabbed the documents and scanned them intensely. What is this, Nicholas? Since when have you been doing this?
It's a lie. All lies. Veronica, stop looking. Give me that.
Nicholas, looking panicked, tried to snatch the documents, but it was too late. Veronica, distraught, confronted Nicholas. You have been doing this behind my back? The car you wanted so badly was for her in these photos, wasn't it? No matter how Nicholas tried to calm her, Veronica wouldn't listen. The discussion about Brandon's divorce was forgotten. Veronica left the house crying, and Nicholas hurried after her. Brandon, left behind, said,
Hey, wait, what about me?
And followed them out in confusion. We all remained in stunned silence for a while, but Elaine was the only one with a satisfied look winking at me. Later, Elaine told me that Brandon's parents did indeed get divorced. You won't fall for such a terrible man again. Let's make you more attractive. I'll teach you everything about polishing yourself as a woman. Despite her busy schedule, Elaine visited me and took me to various places, meals, shopping, trips. During this time, I learned a lot from her. A year after the divorce, I decided to go to graduate school. I continued to improve myself while studying hard. Time flew, and one day, someone called out to me at a street intersection. I turned around to see Brandon.
It's been a while. You changed a lot, haven't you? At first, I didn't even recognize you.
Brandon said, looking at me intently. In Brandon's eyes, the woman standing before him was no longer the plain ex-wife he knew, but had transformed into an incredibly beautiful and attractive woman. In contrast, Brandon himself had fallen on hard times. Due to the scandal of his parents' divorce, it seemed he was no longer attending graduate school. His parents, Nicholas and Veronica, had decided not to provide any financial support to Brandon anymore because of the situation he caused. He was far from the carefree life of going out, struggling even to afford his tuition and living expenses. The women who once flocked around him left him one by one. The farmer glory he enjoyed vanished in an instant, and now he found himself face to face with his ex-wife, who seemed to be a completely different person. Brandon, perhaps feeling desperate, started to say,
Hey, would you like to catch up? Maybe we could go to a cafe or something?
Just as he began, a man approached and asked,
Sorry for the wait. Are you a friend of Margaretta's or something?
Shifting his gaze to Brandon. This man was Leonard, someone I was currently dating. You see that guy? Isn't he really handsome? He's so tall. Wow, yeah. Could he be a model or something? A group of women nearby commented, looking at Leonard. He's someone I used to know a long time ago, but it's okay. We are done talking. Let's go, shall we?
Is that so? All right then, let's go.
Leonard said, taking my hand and briefly greeting Brandon. Brandon stood there, stunned, watching us. Without any concern for Brandon, Leonard led me by the hand towards the crosswalk. And I, too, never looked back, keeping my eyes fixed straight ahead as we